Welcome today to the Great Asian Northern Power Mission event, which has been organised with a great team behind it. Thanks to Sharon and her colleagues for making it possible for us to all be here today. My name is Henri Murison. I'm Director of the Northern Powerhouse Partnership. It gives us great pleasure as an organisation to be supporting this week, and a real pleasure to be here today. We've got some fantastic supporters and partners that have made this session possible. Our friends at Invest Lancashire and Lancashire County Council. And so I suppose as well as being virtually in India today, we are also to an extent virtually in Lancashire. Our friends from the Confederation of Indian Industry and the law firm Squire, Patton, Boggs. And thanks so much to the team there for making today possible. We've got a really packed lineup of speakers, but I think to really just say initially, very sort of in 30 seconds, why energy is so important for the Northern Powerhouse and for the north of England. All I would really want to emphasise to friends from outside of the north of England, in particular those of you joining us from India, is the scale of opportunity around small modular reactors, around decarbonisation of our electricity through offshore wind and other renewables. There are just a number of huge opportunities for us and existing assets that are just so critical, because whether it's where we manufacture these technologies or whether it's in their deployment, expertise in integrating them into our networks and grids, we have real expertise in the north of England and have powered the nation, this country, for so many years, and are now really keen in this year of COP26, which will be hosted in Glasgow in a few months' time, to contribute to the wider efforts to decarbonise the economy, but also in the same way to create jobs through the energy sector, which is a great employer and a great need of talent, not just an opportunity in isolation to deal with decarbonisation, but also to enable the rest of the economy to grow. So not having to compromise on economic growth in order to do that sustainably. That's something in the north of England we're so keen to collaborate on internationally. And I know we've got some huge opportunities to learn and work in partnership with so many great Indian businesses. So thank you so much again for the opportunity to be with you all today. So our first speaker is Stephen Young, who's the Executive Director of Growth, Environment, Transport and Community Services at Lancashire County Council. It's a really great time for Stephen to be with us, particularly as Lancashire thinks about its longer term economic plans. And I'm so privileged to be able to do a small amount to help Stephen and his team with that, because they are doing great work to really understand and deepen Lancashire's strengths as part of the wider Northern Powerhouse, and their leadership around energy and its importance in the manufacturing sector cannot be overstated. So really great you can be here today, Stephen, and look forward to hearing a bit of what you've got to share with us.
Thank you very much, Henry. Thank you for those warm words of introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today at the Northern Asian Power Mission as part of this Energy Masterclass. I'm conscious that we have got a packed agenda, so I just wanted to really touch on three key things today. Firstly, wanted just to introduce Lancashire, particularly for colleagues overseas that aren't familiar with the Red Rose counter, then talk a little bit around our work in energy, because clearly this is an Energy Masterclass, in terms of the work that we're doing in that particular field, and then just finish off with talking about some of the processes that we've put in place that we think are best in class in terms of supporting businesses that want to relocate to Lancashire, whether that be from within the UK or overseas. In terms of Lancashire, the county, for those that don't know, Lancashire is a large county in the northwest of England, and we sit in between Liverpool on one side of us and Manchester on the other. We have a population of around 1.5 million people, with a working age population of about 1 million. And we are the second largest economy in the region, with a GDP of around £40 billion per year. We already lead the UK and indeed the world in a number of fields, most noticeably aerospace, with Lancashire being the #1 UK hub for the production of civil and military aircraft, and number 3 around the world. But it's not only in the area of aerospace that Lancashire leads the way. We also are very prominent in other areas such as advanced manufacturing, food and drink, digital, and indeed energy. And when you look at the county, there's little surprise that we are so successful, with 6 major motorways crisscrossing the county going north, south, east, west, easy access to 2 international airports, and we sit on the West Coast Main Line, which is the high-speed train link between London and Edinburgh, meaning within Lancashire you can get easy connections into London in about 2 hours, to Glasgow and Edinburgh in slightly over 2 hours, Manchester and Liverpool in about 40 minutes, and destinations around the world from our two international airports. But Lancashire's anything if it's not ambitious and want to see us continue to grow and grow further. So we've got ambitious plans in place at the moment, which are coming to fruition, to deliver another 50,000 new jobs, 40,000 new homes, and £3 billion of additional economic activity by 2025. So Lancashire never really stands still. Moving on to the energy sector, which is clearly what today is about. Lancashire already has some really strong presence in that particular sector. We have significant strengths in nuclear. Lancashire is a global leader in the development of small modular nuclear reactors. We're very powerful in the sectors of wind and renewable energy, gas, water and oil. Already within the county, 41,000 people work within the energy sector. And as a result of that, and the result of the growing market within the energy sector within Lancashire, our 4 universities and high-performing colleges are turning out a talent pool of graduates and undergraduates in the area of civil engineering that is 24 times higher than the national average. Not least from the Lancashire Energy HQ College, which is a specialist college which looks to equip graduates and undergraduates with the skills that they require to work in the energy sector of today and the energy sector of the future. So Lancashire is already very, very sort of buoyant in this sector. So as I mentioned at the outset, we are very keen to do business. We're very keen for businesses to potentially relocate to Lancashire, whether those relocations be domestically or internationally. And we've worked very hard with a range of partners, including the Chamber of Commerce and our Boost team, to develop a point-to-point support network for businesses that wish to relocate, whether that be around assistance with site visits, access to finance, finding key staff, or business introductions to the local network, or in terms of the international market, working around exports, accreditation, tailored foreign exchange solutions, and commercial trade agreements. Lancashire very much is open for business in this sector, or indeed across a number of sectors. I just wanted to finish with this aerial shot of one of the many developments that are coming forward in Lancashire. This is one of our 4 enterprise zones within the county that represents a pipeline of around £4 billion of development, which we'll see coming forward in the next few years. I'll stop there, Henri. I'll stay on the call and happy to take any questions that colleagues may have further down the line. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And we're really looking forward to getting in the questions. I know in the chat, I'm sure we'll have lots of people already coming forward with some great questions to ask as well. Next, Ian Wood, partner who looks at energy and natural resources practice at Squire and Patton Boggs to join us next.
Many thanks, Henry, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving us this opportunity of introducing Squire Patton Boggs to you all. I hope you all are well. We're a full-service law firm across North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. We have 45 offices in 20 countries, and we practice in all the countries where we have offices, and provide services in areas where we don't have offices, which I'll explain a little bit more in due course. I'm a partner in the Energy and Natural Resources team based predominantly in Manchester, although going wherever the work and our clients take us. We're active in all the energy subsectors, and I thought I'd give you a flavour of the sort of work that we're doing at the moment to give you a flavour of how we may help you if you are looking to invest in any of these jurisdictions. So we're dealing with new nuclear in the UK, for example. Nuclear new build plants are being built at Hinkley and Sizewell. We're involved with both of those, but also in Romania, the Czech Republic, Poland, and indeed the Middle East. And again, I'll explain a little bit more about that in due course. We're selling oil refineries in Europe and the US. We're dealing with a hydro project in Eswatini in Africa. We have offshore wind projects in Taiwan, Scotland, and northeastern USA. We have battery storage projects in the United Kingdom. We're dealing with solar projects in the USA and in China. We've been dealing with recently onshore wind farm disposals in the UK, and touching on an area that my partner and colleague Nick Helm will deal with later. We're dealing with mergers and acquisition projects here in the UK. We're dealing with onshore wind farm developments in Western Australia, and we're helping a nuclear regulator in the Middle East. And we are advising the World Association of Nuclear Operators based here in the UK in London. So whilst it's good to focus on projects which are aiming to reduce our carbon footprint, we will also deal with traditional fossil fuel projects too. For example, we're dealing with a coal-fired power station disposal here in the UK and financing of fossil fuel power stations in the UK and the US. We're also advising on the switch from traditional fossil-fueled power stations to biofuel for a number of power stations here in the UK and in the US, making the most of the existing infrastructure, but reducing our carbon footprint at the same time. You'll also hear details in due course, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but from Nick around the Clean Air Zone projects, which we're involved with in the UK, as both local and central governments look to reduce their CO2 and harmful gas emissions in their localities. Now, because of local bar rules, we can't set up offices or practice in India directly, although with close relations with Indian firms, we do advise on significant transactions in India, and we do have a significant presence. So, for example, we've advised recently on the takeover of Mitra Energy, which is an independent power producer in the renewable sector in India. We've also advised on a liquefied natural gas receiving plant in Tamil Nadu in India. We're also very active in capital markets in India with a particular focus on energy and technology. So, for example, we were involved with the financing of a solar project for Jackson Power, and also the financing of a hydro power project for Tata Holdings in South Africa, and a coal mine similarly for Tata in Indonesia. So if you're looking at investing in the UK, or indeed in any of the jurisdictions outside of the UK, we're very well placed to help you. So from planning, so for example, development consent orders for your new project. On the regulatory front, if you were looking in the energy sector in the UK, you might be concerned as a foreign investor with the new National Security and Investment Bill, and we can certainly put your mind at rest around developments there. Or you may have some competition issues, so we can secure clearances for you. And if you need financing, we're able to help with leverage, structured project or off-balance sheet financing with the tax implications and any subsidies which might be available or tariffs that you may be subject to. What I'd suggest sets Squires apart, however, and is unique to us, is our policy arm. So we have a very strong presence, particularly in Europe and North America, on advising on policy considerations. So, for example, you might be interested in the likely direction of energy and infrastructure policy in the UK or the USA, and indeed whether we might be able to influence it. And the answer is through our policy teams, yes, we may be able to, but we can certainly help you with the direction of travel. We have access to policymakers and regularly hold events and presentations from the likes of UK government ministers, members of cabinet or Senate in the US, with the facility to pose questions to them and to probe the policy direction. Or if you're EU focused, then we have a Brussels team who can assist you with not just energy policy, but any sector in which you might be interested. So likewise with Stephen, I'll stay on the call, happy to answer any questions for this opportunity of introducing Squire, Patton, Boggs to you. Back to you, Henri.
Thank you so much, Ian. And now we're going to hear from our partners at the Confederation of Indian Industry. So I'd like to welcome Sukanya Bhadra to now address us and to give us her comments and thoughts.
Thank you, Henri. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to me to represent Confederation of Indian Industry at this Energy Masterclass for the North Asian Power Mission. I lead the energy policy advocacy work for CII, and that is a very interesting area as this sector is the kingmaker and the development fosterer for the country, which is as diverse as ours. To give you a brief background of our institution, we are 125 years old industry association, and we work to create and sustain a conducive social as well as economic and business environment for the development of the country, as well as we work with a lot of international partners. So we partner with industry, government, civil societies. We provide them advisory and consultative services. So we have some 9,100 members from the private as well as public sectors including SMEs and MNCs, and an indirect membership of over 300,000 enterprises from 288 national and regional sectoral industry bodies. We work out of 68 offices, including 10 centers of excellence in India and 8 overseas offices in Australia, Egypt, Germany, Indonesia, Singapore, UAE, the UK and the US, of course, as well as institutional partnerships with 394 counterpart organizations in 133 countries. So I can safely say that CII serves as a reference point for the Indian industry as well as the international business community. And we are very deeply involved with the work that the union and the state governments does. To give you an overview of the kind of work that we do and where we are placed in terms of energy. So ahead of the United Nations significant climate change commitment in Paris, India announced 3 major voluntary commitments called the NDCs. First of which was to move to an energy emissions intensity of 33 to 35% of GDP by 2030 to below the 2005 levels. The second part was increasing the share of non-fossil fuel-based electricity to 40% by 2030, and then enhancing its forest cover, thereby absorbing 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide. So this has made India focus on some very important aspects. To me, there are 3 very important driving factors. Firstly, the energy transition, of which India has already achieved 21% of its emissions. As a part of its climate change commitment, India has set itself a very stretched target, I believe, which is 175 gigawatts, given that we were only at a single-digit number as of 2014. As of now, we have already reached about 85 gigawatts of installed capacity, and more is in the pipeline, of course. This has also made us look at alternate fuels and ways to convert waste to energy. So that is also one of the focus areas. We work with the government on all of these areas. In fact, even on fossil fuels, there is a major transition to gas. So CII is providing a lot of consultation services to the government on that. The second very important aspect is the formation of the International Solar Alliance, which is being presided over, of course, by our minister, Mr. R.K. Singh. He is the energy minister. So ISA, of course, is to renewables what OPEC is to the fossil fuel industry. And there are very important initiatives like the One Sun, One World, One Grid, and the formation of the World Solar Bank to finance RE projects that ISA has been undertaking. And from 2018 to 2020, CII has been the knowledge partner for the ISA. And we are also holding an independent conference on the same this year itself. Now, the third important focus is the Atmanirbhar Bharat project again, which is for self-reliant India, which we have understood that there is no better way to implement RE than reshoring manufacturing of RE components back to India and reduce our dependence on imports. So CII hosted a very large conference last year, and the version 2.0 of this is also planned in May this year. And we are working with the government again on a lot of policies, a lot of things that need to be sharpened to implement this. So these 3 strategies, they are basically based on the government's vision to provide 24/7 secure, clean power for all. We achieved 100% household electrification in 2018. Now CII has consulted the government on some very important areas like National Electricity Amendment Bill 2020, the Tariff Policy 2016, privatization of DISCOMs, which is one of the hotspots right now, bringing in more competition in transmission, state issues on procurement of power, national policy on biofuels, and many more. So CII has been a partner for the RE Invest between 2015 and 2020. I'm not sure if you're aware, but this is one of the largest renewable energy events that is held across several countries internationally. We bring together Indian and international ministers, industry, think tanks, policymakers on one single platform. And CII has been the knowledge partner for that. On the 1st of February this year, the Finance Minister, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, announced that we are going to come up with a national hydrogen mission, which aims for generation of hydrogen from green power resources. So that's again something, this was a part of our recommendations on alternative fuels, and we will continue to find areas of policy advocacy to help streamline the government's goals with with our future energy needs. Just wanted to show you a sample of the papers that we have come out with in the last couple of years, which is pretty much, during COVID-19, we came out with a paper on how to sustain India's power and renewable energy sector. We've come out with a paper on new age power systems, which is on the transmission challenges and how to bring in more competitiveness, where we did an international benchmarking study and put it all together. The Atmanirbhar Bharat report is, of course, on the renewable energy manufacturing sector. The voice of consumer, which is, again, we divided India's consumer diaspora into 3 different segments, and we saw how our states are performing in each of their energy supply satisfaction levels. And the champion sector ethanol study, which was done with DPIIT. So we keep working on such stuff. Our recent hotspot is, of course, the privatization of the distribution sector, which is something that CII has been advocating for a couple of years now, and thankfully that is on the radar of the government. So anywhere where you would require us to get involved in such consultative processes, we would be more than happy to be a part of that. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for listening in, and over to you, Henri.
Thank you so much. And I mean, with so much commonality, of course, to the Northern experience, you'll know hydrogen, obviously a key part of the North's offer, not just in Lancashire, where it could be produced by SMRs, but obviously linked to carbon capture, use and storage in our Freeport locations, also announced in yesterday's budget. So much commonality with the Indian experience in terms of shared goals and shared areas of interest, which obviously is great grounds for business collaboration. So appreciate those insights. Next, we're going to go to Prasenjit Dhar, who's the Associate Director of UKIBC and leads on advanced engineering and energy sectors, with a focus on aerospace, defence and security, as well as automotive, energy and natural resources, technology collaboration and sustainable manufacturing. So clearly a very Lancastrian focus, we might say, from our host today. So Prasenjit, so appreciate you being with us, and obviously don't feel you have to talk about Lancashire, but obviously be really pleased to hear your opening remarks.
Thank you, Henri, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to this mission today. Very good afternoon to everyone here and also in India. I'm Prasenjit. I'm the Associate Director for UKIBC, and as Henri mentioned, I lead on the advanced engineering and the energy side of things. I come from a background of working with different organizations like the British High Commission before I moved here to UKIBC, and prior to that in the consulting domains in PwC and KPMG. So what we do, UK India Business Council, we are a membership-based organization working closely with governments and businesses in both our countries. So like Sukanya mentioned, CII is one of our partners when we work in India, so is FICCI. But at the same time, we at the UK and we work very closely with the DIT, with BASE, with various ministries, as well as all the regions and various chambers across the country. UKIBC has evolved over the years. I have been with UKIBC for almost 10 years now. So from where we started to where we are now is quite different, as in we now focus mainly on advocacy and strategic advisory businesses. And the mission statement, as we say, is to build economic prosperity in the UK and in India. And as the name suggests, obviously, we work only within these two geographies, so very focused in terms of what we offer to companies, our members, our clients, and help them in these two countries. So in terms of advocacy supports, as in there are lots of UK businesses that we work with who are already in India, or both in terms of trading in the market or have large investments there. So you can see from the map on the right hand side, as in we work with companies across the UK and who are present in India across various regions and cities in India. In terms of whatever issues that the UK businesses have been facing, or in the other way around, as in where Indian businesses in the UK have been facing, we raise it with the governments on both sides. The other area where in terms of strategic advisory we talked about, it's more in terms of tactical support in helping clients enter, understand, and expand in both the countries. We would like to kind of, as I said, as the name suggests, we were set up by the UK government initially to help increase trade and investment between our two countries. So as I was mentioning earlier, on the UK side, we work with the devolved administrations, with the UK government, with city regions. And on the Indian side, obviously, we work very closely with the union government in India, as well as the various state governments. In terms of the state governments, increasingly what we have been kind of asked to do by the British High Commission there is to increase the commercial links with the various states. As you know, in India, states, it's a federal structure, so states have independent mechanisms or decision-making powers when it comes to policy. And so we at this point of time, we have MOUs with 6 states across India, and obviously we are working on increasing that number. In terms of what we provide across the bilateral relationships that between the two countries, we are the UK Secretariat for JETCO, which is the Joint Economic and Trade Committee dialogue, which is the dialogue between the Ministry of Commerce in India and GIT at this end. We are also the UK Secretariat for the UK-India CEOs Forum, which is kind of led by the 2 Prime Ministers in both the countries. And we also, something which is not mentioned here, we are also the Secretariat for the UK-India EFD, which is the Economic and Financial Dialogue, which is between the Chancellor's office here and the Ministry of Finance in India. So in terms of what we do and how we can help companies, I mentioned about the various things that we do in terms of tactical support as well as in terms of advocacy. The key sectors that we focus on are advanced engineering, digital and ICT, healthcare and life sciences, higher education, infrastructure, financial services, which cuts across all these sectors, and of course, energy. So within these sectors, we, during our, over the last few years, during various prime ministerial interactions that happened, as in UKIBC was asked to focus on these areas where both the countries felt that there are mutual synergies, there are opportunities to be looked at in both the markets. So hence these sectors have come, as in we have taken up these sectors as our focus sectors. But that does not mean that we don't focus on other areas, as in food and drink, in terms of other sectors like chemicals, etc., are also areas that we focus on. Sukanya mentioned, but as in everyone knows that there are enormous opportunities in India. But being Indian, having lived in India most of my life, I can say that it's not a very easy place to operate. There are challenges, but then with the right kind of support, I think there is a significant amount of opportunities which people can harness. UK companies have been doing that. It's not only large multinationals, but we work very closely with smaller and medium-sized companies as well. So if you are looking at something like understanding a market landscape in a certain area, kind of understanding what the competitive landscape is, what kind of policy environment, regulatory environment is there, what are the kind of bureaucracies that you can expect across India, how to find the right partner, which is very important, and where in India, as I said, India is a huge country with 26 states, each state having its own regulations, its own policies. So we can guide a company when they are looking at India to understand the market and make the right decisions. And similarly, for companies who are looking at setting up in the UK, we work with them as well on similar lines. So energy, as I said, is one of the key areas that we focus on. And Sukanya mentioned in her comments just before me, and the opportunities are huge. So if we look at the low carbon side of energy, the opportunities are huge. And in India, as in looking at the economic growth that the government is looking at attaining, the access to energy is absolutely critical. So in India, all forms of energy will coexist and will remain in the near future, I'm sure. But within that, obviously, this government, the current government in India, their focus has been hugely on increasing the renewable energy side of things, lowering our carbon footprint. So energy transition and climate economy are two key words which you will hear anywhere when you go to India. So what we as UKIBC are doing is we are working with many of our members who are already in this area, some of our clients who are also in this area. When I talk about members in terms of the Northwest, as in we have SR UK who own who run the Stanlow refinery, and we are working very closely with them in terms of their strategy in the UK as well as in India and in other geographies. But also they are looking at a new hydrogen project, which I think there are significant collaboration opportunities when it comes to India, as well as you will hear from Stephen Fox, who is the CEO of Energy Pro, which is another member of ours. So with this, what we want this group to focus on are, as in work across the various kind of renewable energy areas or low carbon areas that we talk of, as in some are absolutely everyone talks about and we know, which is solar, offshore wind, energy storage. But not always do we kind of hear about waste to energy, energy efficiency, use of alternative fuels, e-mobility again is huge in both the countries, and Henri touched upon carbon capture and sequestration technologies. So many of them are why I mentioned are different is that GIT, I know, focuses on some of them, but some of them are not when it comes to the UK-India kind of bilateral dialogue. So we would like to kind of showcase all the technologies that the UK has in terms of having a dialogue.
So I was just going to say, I think that's been fantastic. We're going to come back to some of those themes in the questions. Yeah. Quickly hand over to our next speaker, to Jed Heffernan, but I know we were sort of wrapping up anyway, so I'll bring Jed in just to make sure we get through everybody. So Jed, thank you. No, thank you so much. Jed's our case study from the UK, from River Power Pod Limited. So really keen to hear your insights, Jed, and thanks so much for coming and presenting to us today.
I guess the first part I'll start with is to say that, I mean, obviously, thank you for the opportunity. I feel I should confess that rather than saying this is a masterclass, I would normally give this to my students as an example of how not to go about launching a technology. So I look upon it as a learning exercise. So this is about how we've developed a hydro turbine technology. Originally it was developed in Cambridge University, but we've been developing it in the Northwest into a product. And it's about the commercialization and achieving technology impact with it. By that, I mean making sure that we get dissemination and make a real environmental and social impact with the technology. So River Power Pod looks to provide clean power, power for all, and ultimately to empower people through having that power. And it doesn't need to be a huge amount of power. The great thing about the technology is it's scalable. So it can either be a small 250 millimeter turbine that a subsistence farmer can use to irrigate their field, or it can be something that's several meters in diameter to power an industrial application. So just a little bit of background on myself, and I hate people that put their letters after the name, but the reason I've put that there is just to illustrate how diverse the background has been in terms of getting to where I am, in that you'll notice from the last 4 letters there that I was actually a physics and maths teacher. That's how I started out, so that's the PGCE. And BSc is in physics, and the MBA was turning it all into business. So I should know better. So I'm the founder and managing director of Fern Innovation, which is my management consultancy, and River Power Pod, which is the technology development firm. So I've more than 20 years experience in manufacturing and corporate venturing. Reasonably well-known companies, Rolls-Royce PLC, that's not the cars, that's the aero engine and energy systems. Mercedes-Benz Formula One, BAE Systems and Renault Chain. From that then, I developed a lot of renewable and low carbon energy expertise. So having used energy in a very much a carbon-based basis, I looked more on the low carbon side, and I was Vice President Corporate Venturing for Rolls-Royce and ultimately CEO of the Rolls-Royce Tidal Generation company, which I set up. So we put a hydro turbine in up at Orkney and EMEC. And I've spent the last decade as an independent consultant providing support to startups, SMEs, corporates, and so on, developing and delivering new low carbon products and growth. Part of the link to this from the Lancashire side of things is that I'm one of the innovation consultants on the high impact East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce Chamber Low Carbon project, which has been really successful in making significant change to the amount of carbon generated in the county. In terms of the additional activities, I'm an academic project supervisor, Manchester Business School on the Global MBA programme. So I have students across the globe, every continent apart from Antarctica, I think. And we look at, I look at commercial viability, due diligence for investors and developers, and look at IPR portfolios. But the key part of that education part that I mentioned before is that I work on the STEM educational development, both here in the UK and in the global south. So within all of that, picked up RPP technology about 5 years ago. It's an in-stream hydro turbine. You'll see from the diagram up there in the top corner that it basically just sits in the stream of the water. There's no need to dam the river, divert the river, or do anything different. It's a very simple device, one moving part in it. It just sits in the flow and either generates electricity or turns pumps to provide freshwater irrigation. And it can be any flowing water. We did look at a certain, I can't say which, but we looked at a certain brewery, and yes, it would work in the pipe work within the brewery. So it'll do it with the beer as well as with water. It works just as well. In terms of its USP, it's very high efficiency. It's low cost, uses low cost, reliable, proven drivetrain components. To give you an idea, hopefully the link with Tata is that it uses, we've done a large version with Lancaster University where it uses Land Rover wheel bearings inside of it, for example, so people can access the parts and components in existing supply chains. I also confess I've got a thing about old Land Rovers, so that might have steered me in a particular direction. There's no diversion of river required, as I said, and there's minimal environmental impact, and that's key. The Environment Agency here in the UK have been very supportive of what we're doing, and we're in the process of developing a project with them to actually roll this type of turbine out right across the UK in a host of different applications, which is really exciting. So we've done a whole host of development work with various sizes of units, demonstrated here in the UK, in Nepal and in Kenya. We're currently engaged in a project with a school and technical college in Kenya, in Embu, where we're working with a technical college, a girls' school, a boys' school, and developing a business for them. That's the 500mm turbine that we're doing to create a self-sustaining business for them with equal opportunities, which then provides free turbines into the local community. Since lockdown, developed a 3D printed prototype turbine with Liverpool John Moores University, and they're in test at the moment. They're using recycled plastic bottles. So the principle is, if we can't get out to go and do these things, we can send simple 3D printers out to people and they can make their own using materials that they source locally, and also addresses a lot of the waste issues that they've got in rivers and the like. So this just illustrates the technology development. And I think this is part of this journey side of things. So we talked about the journey I'd had through different elements of things. This is about the technology now. It started out with Cambridge University. I then adopted it to develop it to a commercial device, not just the interesting research that we were doing at Cambridge. We've worked with Lancaster University doing modelling analysis. That's testing in their wave tanks. They did finite element analysis and the like on the designs. And then we've also had additional academic engagement since then with the University of Chester, Liverpool John Moores, the AMRC, part of the University of Sheffield. And this example that you see at the bottom of the slide there is the 3D printed, very simplified version that can be cascaded out across a whole host of applications. This is the 3D printed version. We're actually sending printers out now to Kenya so that the school can print these for subsistence farmers and actually start making a difference with the irrigation issues that they've got. And that applies anywhere where we can send them. The people we're working with schools, and the people that run those schools have, I think it's 570 schools across Africa and India. So they're technology centres, sorry, not just schools. I'm not using child labour. These are actually apprentices and technical colleges that are making these. And they're already well established within India across the country. And the aim is that we're working with them for this as an example in Kenya that will be cascaded right the way across their scope of operations. So we expect to see starting going into India to follow on from the Kenya trial. So this is just some examples of that journey, starting at the top there on the left in the wave tank developments. Two people will know these in the Northwest. That's the wastewater treatment works at Bolton. Those top two on the middle and right-hand side. And the wastewater treatment works near Darwin on the middle there at the other side. So it works in sewage works. When you've got the water coming out, you can capture some of the energy back. The middle one is in a factory in Knowsley where we make these things. The next one across there is the turbine under an inflatable catamaran that just sat in a river in Stafford. The 3D printed turbine down at the bottom, and then that's us in Kenya, putting the turbine into the water, just using some simple girders across the river, and we generate electricity. That was the people from the school put that together. So basically what happened is that we were looking at commercial side of things, but we got drawn into the social impact side. When you saw what people were having to live with, it was one of these things of, look, we've got to do something about this, we can help. It's easy to adopt this. The picture there on the left is in Nepal. And Canali River in the Terai. The Terai gets flooded, well, I don't need to tell you, it gets flooded every year. These are opportunities where people can be generating all year round, and because it floats, the turbine, you can just take it out during the flooded periods while all the boulders pass, and then put it back into the river. It's quite interesting exercise. Not much time to talk about that, but it was very useful. That was looking at flood defence systems as well. The other side there is in Kenya with the girls' school. When we went in 2016, 0 girls doing physics in the school. I gave practical lessons with my colleagues to classes of 350 plus. Went back 2 years later, now 50% of the girls are taking physics, and they're winning national science competitions across Kenya and going into other areas demonstrating what they've learned. That is the sort of thing that makes you realise you're making an impact, and it'll make an impact for them as well, because we've made the policy with the business that we work with on the schools. The schools and technical colleges already have their own businesses. That's the model they use throughout the world. We're just giving them another product to make, but we insist that it's a 50-50 business. We don't want it to be seen either gender. It's just simply employ people 50-50, very easily done. And it creates opportunities that otherwise wouldn't exist for people. So this is just some of those lessons. So some of the instances where we were in the Canali River there in the middle, at the top. Physics lesson, you're able to do physics lessons demonstrating potential energy, jumping off, creating kinetic energy, and lighting bulbs in the process. So we were doing those lessons as well. In the middle there on the left-hand side is in a river with a school in Carlisle here in the Northwest as well. So in terms of answering the questions that we've set, barriers and opportunities, there is a major gap in turning innovations into application and action, not just in the UK, it's globally. There's a pressing need to provide a sandpit for innovators and pupils to develop and test their ideas. This is through findings I've had from being a physics teacher originally, right the way through my commercial life with the corporates, and here now supporting SMEs and new product development. We need to enable development and test here in the UK and then export to communities in need elsewhere or where the applications are globally. There are centres of excellence like the AMRC and so on that are developing facilities here in Lancashire to be able to start doing some of that technology development. But a key for us is the work we're doing now with Red Cat, which I know Miranda's going to talk about, which looks at helping people get over that hump, basically. Participation in these activities stimulates interest and engagement in STEM, and it's vital that we develop the STEM skills within our population. And this gives an opportunity to do that with the applications. There's examples where we can demonstrate that just even bringing a single fridge into a village can convert and release the women to engage economically and grow. Instead of having to cook continuously, they can keep stuff and engage economically that way. Innovation needs nurturing. That's the bottom line there. So the key lessons from that, it's funding the hump. It's getting over that. You've got an idea, you prove the technology works, it's turning it into something commercial. We've had numbers of offers of finance to purchase the business, to finance and purchase the business. But unfortunately, every one of those would have prevented us doing the social impact, social and environmental impact. People just wanted to get into the FIT system to claim the initial incentives and then jump out of it as quick as they could. So therefore, we've decided to go self-funding. It supports the clarity of purpose, but it's very time consuming. Doing the academic collaborations within that takes far more time, far more work and time than you might have anticipated. But if you closely manage it, you can get very, very valuable results from that. Genuine economic, social and environmental impact agencies, such as Red Cat, are rare. And Red Cat is now enabling us to accelerate that commercialisation through helping get over that hump. And then there's a mechanism there where that can then bring funding back into the region to help fund further people developing new technologies. Resources, when you're working with NGOs and charities, the synchronicity of the NGOs, the charity agencies and the volunteers available, there are windows of opportunity. When those windows of opportunity aren't met or don't synchronise, the cost of recapturing those is huge. And then when you look at the viability of partners, particularly those in the target location, we did look at doing it through NGOs and through government agencies, but actually, working directly with the schools and the organisations or the end users has been the most effective way of actually doing that and making sure the synergy of what people want to do. So thank you for listening to me. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Jed. That was great. Really interesting. Really interesting. And I wanted to now go on to one of our next case studies. We are going to change the format slightly, I think. So we're in flight just because we're having such a great discussion that I think we'll probably all stay together and bring in some of our speakers who are going to go into the breakouts and get them into the main session and just extend this for the whole time we've got together, just because I think we really are getting into a great discussion. We want to have plenty of time to bring back all of our presenters as well for the Q&A, and we don't want to lose that as well. So we are going to have a few more presenters, but probably not have the breakouts, so that we can just have a bit more time and involve all of those who are going to be presenting in the workshop, so everyone can also hear everything that's being said. So next, we're going to go to Manpreet Singh, who's a partner at KPMG India and leads their climate change and sustainability services. He's also their global lead on green and social bonds, which obviously, with that being an area of such interest in the city, another part of the UK apparently, the City of London, I hear. I've never been, but not as great obviously as the north of England. But with all sort of humour and kind of and jockeying there, what I would say is obviously having the city and its focus on green investment, particularly through lockdown, the huge focus there's been internationally. I think Manpreet is a great opportunity because obviously the deployment of those bonds won't be in the city itself, if that makes sense. We want to be deploying bonds here in the north of England and in India, and how we can understand the expertise that we might be able to get from India in this space, not just what we may already know from the UK context, I think is really interesting to many here in the north of England, where we're the beneficiaries, right, of these investment vehicles and the people seeking to attract them, rather than necessarily the people trying to vendor them and develop them and themselves as products, as a piece. So hopefully that's a good starter to Manpreet, and hopefully isn't unhelpful, but really keen to hear what you've got to say, because I think we are very excited from a northern perspective to hear what you've got to share.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone from KPMG in India. I'm really glad to be invited here and speak on behalf of my firm. And as you all know, KPMG is one of the biggest 4 consultancies in the world, and we have offices in more than 155 plus countries. ENR, on energy and natural resources, remains the focus area of most of our member firms globally.
And I believe we have a very strong practice back in the UK as well, which has been at the forefront of leading innovation and reforms in the sector in the country. From perspective of what we do here in India, I think we have again a very strong ENR practice, and within ENR also we have a huge focus on power and utilities, where our work stretches from working with the private sector to the government agencies. When I say government agencies, we work with both central agencies and the state level agencies. And within the state level agencies also we work with the regulatory commissions as well as transmission and distribution companies, helping them in implementation of either central or state level schemes. Just to give you a glimpse of what we do, with them, we've been running, for example, a large program with FCDO, which is on power sector reforms in India since the year 2016. And I think the program is going to end in the year 2022. And we have made substantial progress in terms of looking at how the policy landscape itself has evolved in India. And as we see the focus on renewable energy in particular now, I think we've already been talking about a 450 gigawatt target than what it was envisaged earlier. So it's a huge shift in terms of having focus on renewable energy is there, and I think we've seen the prices also substantially come down, from that perspective. So I think we've taken a lot of initiatives under this power sector reform program, and we've developed specific vehicles and infrastructure development funds as well, which are looking at potentially helping companies come up with innovative business models that could be applied across, solar in particular. And we work with most of the other agencies who are interested in this sector as well. I think from the perspective of looking at financial instruments to support sustainability, which is where I mostly come in. We have worked with again financial institutions as well as energy companies in terms of issuing their green bonds. And what we've seen, and as you rightly said, Henri, is that globally we are seeing, especially post-COVID recovery that is in progress, we're seeing a huge amount of voices pointing towards a green recovery. And when we say green recovery, it's largely concentrated towards making sure on how we are able to set up green infrastructure, which is going to lead to the future development or future course of development, and that too, low carbon or decarbonized development. I think it's not to the people here that the UK already has taken up a net zero goal. We are also looking at India to define what we would want to see as a net zero transition, and we are working with some of the key stakeholders towards looking at what sort of carbon budgets that India will have, if it looks at the year 2050 or beyond, and when could it potentially become carbon neutral. Having said that, just to give you a glimpse of the kinds of companies that we've worked with in India on especially the bonds, if I can start with the first public sector utility, that is NTPC, which came out with a 1,000 crore bond, which was largely investing into solar assets. Again, this was an experience that we were earlier shy to take up. Basically a thermal power company deciding to issue a green bond to invest into renewable assets. There was always the risk that the funds which have been received through the issuance of those bonds could possibly be leaked into using for thermal or fossil based infrastructure creation. So we had to be very careful with that, and I think we set up a separate fund altogether where we could transparently look at the trail of how the proceeds were utilized by NTPC. Similarly, we worked with other energy companies as well, mostly renewable energy companies, the likes of Hero Future Energies, the Azure Power, Renew Power, and now that the concept of bond itself is also evolving, where we are now seeing banks being interested in providing sustainable loans, and those products are also becoming quite a lot frequent these days. In fact, going from beyond that, they're looking also at sustainability-linked bonds, where the sustainability or ESG performance of a company is linked to the percentage basis price difference that could be there if a company is able to achieve those goals in a given period of time during the tenure of a particular bond or loan. In terms of the international standards that we work with, we mostly look at the Climate Bond Initiative's Climate Bond Standard, again, a UK-based not-for-profit, which has come up with this international standard on climate bonds, which is something that we apply more frequently. We also work with the International Capital Markets Association's Green Bond Principles, which is not really a standard, but a probable guideline towards helping issuers in terms of what they need to make sure when they are issuing a green bond, and how are they calling that the bond is actually green. We've also been testing, the concept with municipalities here. We are a part of the SDG finance facility, which has been established by some of the donor countries, including, DFID and the Swiss Development Corporation, the EU, and it is currently hosted by UNDP, where we are, testing municipal bonds, municipal green bonds for some of the municipalities to look at waste management and wastewater reuse and treatment related infrastructure projects to be funded through them. Apart from those, we are also working with on actually the strategy aspects and M&A aspects of companies who are looking to either buy out assets that have been created in the energy sector, or helping them enter altogether into the renewable energy sector. We're also seeing the evolution of electric vehicles, which is again going to be supported largely through the power sector, and of course new technologies that are being talked about. I see that there are discussions here on those as well. Similar to that, we are also holding discussions at a policy level on, for example, the role of hydrogen in the Indian energy sector going forward, and how green hydrogen and such technologies could perhaps play a role much earlier than what it was envisaged earlier. We're also looking at the carbon capture and storage technologies with the likes of NTPC, Indian Oil Corporation, and others, where we are currently testing various kinds of locations which could possibly be looked at as storage sites in the future. So some of these work which is in the nascent stage yet, I think something which will evolve very fast as we foresee, largely because of the whole net zero transition that is being taken up seriously globally. And there are many private sector companies as well who've already declared their net zero goals and their intent to become carbon neutral in the future. Some of the other services that we provide, especially in climate change, which are more towards identification of risks and opportunities, largely coming from the Task Force on Climate Related Financial Disclosures guidelines around companies disclosing their climate related risks on businesses, and that too in financial implication terms. So we are currently working out models which can help these companies to identify what sort of implications that different kinds of risks would have on the financials, on the profit or revenues going forward in the future. And this is something that I'm currently leading with some of the renewable energy companies, for example, here, where they clearly want to understand what sort of impacts will happen on their existing assets, and how do they incorporate and integrate climate risks into future asset creation, so that they're very clear on what kind of implications, financial implications, that they could have in terms of either damaging the infrastructure created, or looking at reduction in profits and revenues, or availability of resources itself. Further to that, even in terms of looking at modeling of, for example, forecasting of different sources of energy generation at the state level. So we are working with some of these utilities in terms of forecasting what sort of energy availability would be there for companies to offtake. So we have some models that we've done on that side as well. We've also developed the likes of computation general equilibrium models to understand what sort of growth and transition pathways exist which will look at the growth of the sector, especially the energy sector, vis-a-vis what kind of emission intensity of the GDP is going to be impacted by that. So we've tested a number of policies of the Government of India on what impact they will have on emission intensities and what impact they will have in general on either reducing emissions or the dynamic part of it on if there is reduction in one sector, how does another sector react in terms of the use of the fuel or the emission intensity itself. So we are actually using these dynamic models to understand how different sectors behave when a policy is introduced, a particular kind of policy, especially related to decarbonizing the power sector in India. I think the growth story is clear to everyone. India today is a destination which has attracted solar investments globally, and I think it was never envisaged that by this time we would be looking at more than 35 gigawatts of installations that have happened in the last 4 years itself. And it's remarkably a very interesting story where competitive bidding has led to a massive reduction in tariffs. We had a tariff of around 17.1 per unit, which was envisaged in the year 2010, to what we have today, which is already we are seeing companies quoting under 2 per unit, which is, I think, a significant reduction and something that showcases that how solar in particular has become much more attractive than actually fossil fuel based investments. We're also working on models around looking at how carbon pricing, market-based mechanisms or carbon taxes could potentially also work towards reducing emissions largely in the power sector. And as I speak, I have various colleagues working with oil and gas companies or even coal mining companies and companies which are running coal-based power plants to look at bringing in more efficiencies, helping them diversify into other businesses and co-creating with them a strategy that will make sure that they are sustainable in the future. And on the aspects of sustainability, as potentially you are all aware that ESG has become more or less mandatory in terms of the investors' requirements. So most of these companies are today devising an ESG framework and a strategy to integrate ESG issues into their larger business practices. And a big role has been played by the ESG rating agencies, which have given them a low rating and therefore made them look at how to devise various ways of increasing these scores.
It's great, Manpreet, and I really appreciate all you've said because it's been really, really interesting stuff. And I think we've really struggled to keep to time today because we've got such great content and we've had some great questions start to come in. So please do share those questions because I'm sure based on what Manpreet said, certainly I had lots of questions I wanted to ask about the implications and some of the opportunities for collaboration and how businesses both in India and in the UK could benefit from some of the opportunities he was outlining. So now we've got more questions already coming in. So we're going to keep going. We'll work out when we can bring some questions in amongst the extra questions the extra presentations we've got. So Miranda Barker, who we heard about Red Cat before in Jed's presentation, Miranda's also plays a huge role through her role, obviously as a LET board member, but also as Chief Executive of the East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce, a great friend and advocate of the Northern Powerhouse agenda and certainly a real great friend and ally to myself in terms of the work we're trying to do both in Lancashire and across the wider north of England. So Miranda, so delighted to be with you again today, if not sadly in beautiful Lancashire itself on my end, but really lovely to have you here and so glad you could present and come and join us today.
Thank you very much, Henri. And nice to see everyone here and so many people we've seen before and people we've yet to meet that would be really excited to meet in person when we can do one of these missions, how they're designed to be, where we're actually making friends with each other face to face. You have seen this logo before already this morning. This is Red Cat. This is the Lancashire Centre for Alternative Technologies. And I will just give you a very brief introduction to myself and how we got here and why we've created Red Cat. I'm an environmental consultant by background. So before I was the chief exec of the East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce and also a LEP director, a Lancashire Enterprise Partnership director, I was an environmental consultant and working over a very long period of time trying to support the development of new low carbon technologies, including the river power pod, which I first met around about 8 years ago. And we quickly realized that there was an issue in terms of what support those kind of technologies needed to take them through all the way to commercialization and the kind of deployment you've seen with Jed's power pod now, where it is in rivers in Kenya and being manufactured locally by those students. The problem is the technology isn't supported all the way through its evolution. It's very hard to start off and get the technology supported. We've got a great infrastructure for innovation. We've got a great infrastructure with our universities. They're very good at supporting early stage low carbon technologies. But what we don't have is the support structure there to take them all the way through to commercialization quickly. But it is a huge opportunity and one that Lancashire is really trying to make sure it's grasping. A few years ago when we had a good organisation called EnviroLink, which spanned across the whole of the Northwest, and we had a very deep understanding of the importance of the energy, environmental and low carbon sectors, we realised that actually within the UK, the area of the UK that's most innovative in driving forward this kind of work is that where also the Industrial Revolution started. So Lancashire, Yorkshire, the northwest of England. So we do have this expertise, but it's really hard to capitalise on it. And the opportunity for our county and our area was huge. And this wheel of sort of different benefits and what we're trying to create in the area show you all of those different opportunities. We have the opportunity to do the manufacturing in the area and create jobs producing the technologies. We've got a huge opportunity in terms of the skills that will be needed to develop, deploy and install technologies. They of course give us the resilience in terms of not only local but also global survivability of climate change and trying to avoid the whole world going down the path that the north of England has gone in terms of energy generation through dirty energy generation, high carbon intensive technologies, until we're now finally getting to the point where we're seeing a decent percentage of energy being generated by renewable and low carbon sources. It should be all of our responsibility to try and take the whole world on that journey in a much swifter way. And if we can do that by creating new low carbon technologies and then working with organizations such as we've got attending today to take those technologies swiftly to market and into new communities around the world, that's what we should do. And this one will be complicated to look at, but I will just briefly guide you through it. And I hope that you're going to receive the slide packs from our organisers as well. So the Lancashire Centre for Alternative Technologies is really there to help deal with the issues in developing the technologies, helping them move swiftly through to commercialisation and capitalise on the support from all of the different partners around the table. So this slide is very, very busy, but the green strand of boxes along the middle, they are what Red Cat is about, helping people with new technologies identify the markets, national overseas customers, find support for the early development, as well as the long-term financial support that's needed. So instead of incrementally having to do that year on year on year and taking over a decade, we're there to help hothouse that technology all the way through, working with partners such as the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, which you'll hear from Melissa later, all the way through to exporting those technologies around the world. Obviously, this is a huge opportunity as the world does now finally seem to be embracing in terms of looking at the recovery and the economic growth following the COVID crisis, but also all sorts of economic disruption around the world. Low carbon technologies are a route where we can collaborate for long-term profitability as well as global environmental gain. So this is my final slide. This is just to show you the network of partners that are involved just in Lancashire, where we're working with organisations such as the Environment Agency to work with high energy users to make support their journey to adopting low carbon technologies, where we're working with skills and colleges and organisations to incubate those technologies and develop them. And my strongest call to those of you all around the table today is that we are here and we are there to be partners with you to listen to technology ideas that you have, to help connect you with people who might develop those technologies and hopefully work with you to send these technologies around the world for economic, but also for environmental gain, which of course is the longest term goal. And I'm here for any questions at the end of the event if we have time for that. So it's nice to meet all of you, and please do get in touch. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Miranda. A really interesting presentation. And we're now going to jump straight to Dr. Stephen Fawkes, Managing Partner at Energy Pro, and Mr. Kumar from EESL, an energy JV, which is among the fastest growing Indian companies in the UK and connects the focus of both countries on climate change, energy efficiency and sustainability. So really pleased you can both be with us, Stephen and Mr. Kumar. So the floor is very much for both of you to take. And great, thanks again for all the questions. And we'll go to some of those hopefully after we speak to Nick Helm and others after this. So Stephen, Mr. Kumar, welcome.
Thank you, Henri. Well, first of all, good afternoon. Secondly, I do need to apologise on behalf of Mr. Kumar, Mr. Saurabh Kumar, who's the Executive Vice Chairman of EESL and our partners in the JV that I'll be talking about. He was looking forward to joining us today, but at short notice was invited to a meeting by the First Secretary of the Ministry of Power. And given EESL sits under the Ministry of Power, that's one of those invitations that really does take precedence over everything else, I'm afraid. But Saurabh deputised me to give both sides of the story of our joint venture and speak on his behalf. So the JV that we created with EESL is actually called EESL Energy Pro Assets, which is a long name, and we call it EPOW for short. And in 2020, it was named by Grant Thornton as the fastest growing Indian-owned company in the UK, which was a pleasant surprise to us. We didn't know that was going to happen, and it was a great accolade to get. But as EPAL is a JV between EESL and Energy Pro, I thought I'd just give a brief description of both sides of the JV, then some history about how the JV came to be, some observations on success factors, and then a quick look at the future. For anyone who doesn't know, EESL, Energy Efficiency Services Limited, is the Indian government's energy service company. And it's a world leader in deploying energy efficiency at scale with programs such as Ujala, which has distributed more than 360 million LED lamps on a commercial model. And because of that success, it's now running a wide range of similar programs across many other technologies, including intelligent streetlights, smart meters, efficient appliances, and electric vehicles and charging infrastructure, just to name a few. Its business model is one of aggregating procurement from the public sector and then financing deals, so there is no upfront capital cost to the client. And most of the clients are state, regional, and local governments, but they also work with the private sector. Essentially, the LED program, Ujala, was so successful that EESL has really become the go-to agency in India for getting anything done around energy efficiency and distributed energy. It sits under 4 large utilities in the Ministry of Power, and it's been going 11 years now. And as I said, at a time when we all need to learn how to scale up investment into energy efficiency and clean energy, when you look around the world, examples, EESL really is a world leader in doing that. So that's EESL. Energy Pro, which is our company, that's been going since 2012, so we're just a bit younger than EESL. And it's a small group of impact-led companies based here in the UK and active in the transition to net zero and a regenerative economy. We have a consultancy company that advises corporates, investors, governments, and multilaterals on energy efficiency, financing of energy projects, and net zero strategies. We also develop new business models and new tools to help these markets function better. One of those business models that is starting to get traction in the UK is called ESCO in a Box, Energy Service Company in a Box, which takes all the lessons we've learned from large energy services companies and package them up in a way that SMEs can use. And as well as gaining traction in the UK, that's now being deployed in Kenya as well. And over the years, we've worked obviously in the UK, but we've done a lot of work in Europe, Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and North America. We also have a third company in the group that raises money for energy transition projects and companies, but we have one thing in common across the group, which is all the companies are really focused on impact. So a bit of history on the JV. Back in 2016, we had no connections to India at all. I personally had never been to India, and from the company's perspective, it was not a target area. Then we were suddenly approached out of the blue by EESL, and I found out later we'd been recommended to them by a mutual connection, which is always nice. EESL explained that they wanted to enter the UK market in order to diversify, but also to learn new techniques and technologies that would become relevant in the Indian energy transition. So we got to know each other for a while, and we first provided them with consultancy advice on potential acquisitions. And we then identified 2 small companies in energy efficiency, which are for sale, and proposed acquiring them and proposed a JV. So in March 2017, we made that first acquisition through the JV, and then we made an investment into a battery project. Then in discussing with EESL what the priorities were in India, it became clear that more sustainable cooling solutions were needed, and also that the gas network was being rolled out. And it's important just to say something about the cooling issue in India. As we all know, India is very hot, and it's getting hotter, and it's also getting wealthier. And as hot countries get wealthier, people buy more air conditioning, and this adds a load to the electricity system. And India was the first country to come up with a national cooling action plan. And interestingly enough, this showed that if India bought room air conditioners at the same rate as China did, as it became wealthier, India would need to build 150 gigawatts of new generating capacity just to meet the additional peak load from all that air conditioning. So just imagine that, that's twice the total generating capacity of the UK, just about, just to meet an additional peak load from room air conditioners. And I have said, partly in jest, but if you really want to solve climate change, that's one big problem that you can just focus on. So having kind of ascertained this cooling need and also the rollout of the gas network in India, we identified a company in the UK that had relevant technology, Adina, which is based in Stockport. And Adina is a leading CHP, or combined heat and power, and distributed power system company. Importantly, they also had a lot of expertise in tri-generation. So that's when you produce power, heat, and cooling together, which is very, very relevant in India for large buildings and some industries. We knew the company was for sale, but off the market, and we approached them about acquiring it. And in March 2018, completed that acquisition for £55 million. So in a little over 12 months through the JV, we originated and executed over £60 million of investment into the UK. And EESL is now using Adina's technology to sell finance tri-generation projects in India. So we have a great kind of circular story. India invested in a UK company and is now using that technology to address problems in the Indian transition and helping to grow the UK company. So just a few words on the partnership. At first sight, it is a very strange one. You have on one side EESL, which is this very large government-owned entity in India, and you have Energy Pro, which is a UK SME. Clearly, decision-making processes are somewhat different. It was also the first JV EESL had ever done outside India, and you can imagine it required all kinds of approvals at the highest level. And it went very much to the highest level. It got a lot of attention up to and including Minister Mr. R.K. Singh, who's a big supporter of the JV. So how does it work in practice? Well, like all partnerships, it's not been without difficulties, but we've worked through them. We've had to work very hard at communications, which is always difficult, even within your own companies, or it can be difficult. But the biggest success factor, I think, is a common purpose. Both EESL and Energy Pro are purpose-led organizations, the purpose being to scale up investment into energy efficiency to address climate change and environmental degradation. And when the going gets tough, that purpose really unites us. And I think I can certainly speak for Saurabh Kumar here. it's a really important thing to have that, and it's also important to have good personal relationships, and we've built that over time. I think the other interesting thing for us, despite being part of the fabled Indian government bureaucracy, EESL is actually incredibly entrepreneurial, and that's been a lesson. So I just want to wrap up really by looking towards the future. One thing for sure, the energy transition towards net zero, higher levels of efficiency and more renewable is totally unstoppable. We've heard some of the stats earlier today. India has really made world-leading commitments to rolling out renewables, and with EESL has the best example of how to scale up energy efficiency in the world. The UK is also a leader in the field, perhaps in a slightly different way. I think where we lead is that we have some of the most innovative energy transition companies anywhere. So the market potential and the future of all of these things is looking very good, and I think it's going to be a growth market for sure on both sides of the UK-India bridge. And also, as we heard today, the old myth about renewables and clean technology being more expensive is no longer true. So just to wrap up, there are two key areas that we're active in right now. We're working with EESL on what's known as Convergence Projects. And Convergence is about combining distributed solar, energy storage and energy efficiency in new business models for rural India. And that directly addresses Sustainable Development Goal 7 and has a huge social as well as an economic impact. And we're working to establish a financing platform for those projects, which will act as a conduit for public and private capital. And the potential for that kind of technology is huge, as well as the benefits. And then through EPAM, our side of the joint venture, we're really drawing on our experience with the EESL and the connections we've made in India. And we're working with the EESL and other companies in our network to actively help UK energy transition companies enter the huge Indian market, which can be quite forbidding for small companies. So we've a number of really relevant technology companies on our books from all over the UK, and we're actively working with them, actively talking to Indian partners about opportunities. And our approach is, again, like we did with EESL, to create JVs and then bring in capital. And we think this approach, which builds on the phrase, I think, which Prime Minister Modi came up with, but it was a good phrase. It was innovate in the UK, make in India and sell to the world. So we're using that as an instruction, really. So once the COVID restrictions are reduced, we'll be back in India, establishing a permanent local presence for ourselves. Obviously, we're in regular touch with the EESL, and we'd be happy to work with any other UK companies in the energy transition who really want to access India. So that's all I have to say today. Happy to answer questions, and thank you.
It's a great story as well, Stephen, and a really interesting example of how this can all work in practice, right? In terms of and in this particular year around kind of the response to climate change, the ability to take innovation and quickly commercialize it in other markets where it's most applicable, I think is really, really timely reflection, right, in terms of what the role should be for our business communities and innovators in terms of what they can do to have maximum impact on some of these global challenges. So it's really, really great you could join us, and certainly I know, I'm sure Mr. Kumar will be very welcome when we do this in India another time. Sharon, I'm sure that's already on the cards for after this virtual power mission. So I'm now going to bring in Nick Helm. I'm then going to go to Melissa Conlon from the AMRC Northwest. The AMRC also referenced very much in dispatches throughout today, so I don't think Melissa will be and her institution will be new to anyone in terms of that. You've all had at least an introduction today in terms of the session. So Nick, great to have you back and speak to you again. Nick's a great friend and supporter of the wider Northern Powerhouse as a project, so it's great to be with Nick today. And I know I think, Nick, you want to talk a bit about hydrogen, which, as you know, is a big favourite topic of mine, so I'm obviously excited about this, but I'm sure others will find it just as exciting. Nick, the floor is very much yours.
Thank you, Henry. Good to be with you. So I'm Nick Helm. I'm a partner at Squires. I work closely with Ian Wood, who spoke to you earlier today. So I'm an infrastructure and energy lawyer. The reason for being here is that I have some Indian heritage. My mother was born and brought up in Pune in southern India. And so combination of India and energy and clean air is very relevant and interesting to me. So I, as well as being an infrastructure and energy lawyer, we're actually very active at the moment on clean air charging zones, and so I've been asked to talk a little bit about those. They're not energy schemes so much, but rather looking at clean air and decarbonisation. I think that's where the interest comes. So I'm going to talk about what we're seeing in the UK at the moment, where there's a number of live schemes in development, and talk about some of the supply chain opportunities developing. Just a word on why we have these zones before I tell you what they are. The UK is actually in breach of its own and European clean air regulations, and has been for a number of years. But the government hasn't actually done much about it. And so one of the pressure groups, which is Client Earth, the logo's there on the screen, which is funded by Coldplay and Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd. For those Pink Floyd fans amongst you, Client Earth has taken the UK government to court on 3, possibly 4 occasions, and won on each occasion. And that has prompted central government to instruct a number of local authorities to introduce clean air plans, and in some cases clean air zones. That's been going on for a number of years, that litigation, whilst at the same time public opinion on clean air has been building through the activities of people like Sir David Attenborough, Greta Thunberg, and politicians who are a bit more go-ahead, such as Andy Burnham, our own mayor in Manchester. Also, the other development we've had was in the last quarter of 2020, was a girl in London who died of complications brought on by air quality. The significance of this was that this is the first person in the UK to have air issues actually listed on her death certificate as contributing to her death. So a tragic story, one I think we will see again in the UK, and I think it's something that has made the issues of clean air very much alive for politicians and those who can influence policy. So what is a charging zone? Hold sight of the camera there and the sign. It's basically a zone whereby, often in a city centre, whereby if you drive into that zone in a polluting vehicle, a dirty vehicle, if I can call it that for simplicity's sake, you would pay a daily charge. So it's quite simple in those terms, and the idea is to incentivise a change in behaviour to get us to move to cleaner vehicles, perhaps electric, perhaps hydrogen in the future, and basically improve the vehicle fleet. So the focus of the zones really has been on nitrogen dioxide levels, and the focus has been on exceedances. Various air quality surveys have been undertaken in the UK's urban areas, and a number of spikes or exceedances of nitrogen dioxide is commonly found in areas of high traffic. And that, as I say, has prompted government to direct local authorities to develop clean air plans, and a number have brought forward zones. This is a flavour of the clean air zones that are in development at the moment. London already has a live zone, the ULEZ. Next to come is Birmingham and Bath. We at Squires, we're involved in advising on Greater Manchester, Sheffield and Leeds, which is currently on hold but may come back. But as you can see, there's a number of major cities with these zones in development. And just to give you a bit more of a flavour of the direction, these cities listed here have all been instructed to develop wider clean air plans. So they don't necessarily involve a zone, but have been instructed to develop a series of interventions or strategies to improve clean air in their areas. To give you a flavour of the charges that vehicles might have to pay in the zones, these figures tend to be proposed or in development at the moment. Notice that they're aimed at business vehicles. It's felt to be one step too far, I think, for politicians to include private domestic cars in the zones, although that might follow. But for vehicles, certainly larger vehicles, in vans, buses, coaches, those are quite significant costs or fees to pay to drive into the zone on a daily basis. So this is significant, and it's intended to be so. So this is quite a significant intervention from government. Just to give you a flavour, just some maps first of all. This is the Manchester zone. Interestingly, it's not just the city centre of Manchester that's in the zone, it's all of Greater Manchester. So that's all 10 local authorities. So this is actually a huge area. It's very significant. This covers suburban areas and further areas of Greenbelt as well. This is the Leeds zone, very much smaller. At the moment, Leeds has decided the threat of the zone has actually led to, and some other measures have actually led to air quality improving actually. And so the Leeds zone is on ice for the moment, but it might come back. And then just for flavour, here's the Birmingham zone. So I think you get the idea. This is the London scheme. In the centre there is the current ULEZ, but there is a proposal to extend it very significantly. I think that's in 2022. Okay, so a quick word then on opportunities. Very significant opportunities in air quality monitoring tech and systems. Obviously, those exist at the moment, but what I'm being told is that they're quite simplistic in terms of allowing local authorities and the public sector to accurately monitor, perhaps on a daily basis, emissions levels and levels of nitrogen dioxide and other nasties. And it seems to me that this isn't just a UK opportunity. This must be an opportunity in urban areas the world over. Various opportunities in road signs, things as basic as road signs, manufacture and installation. But more interesting then is the cameras. All these zones are underpinned by number plate recognition cameras and technology and systems that aren't particularly new. They've been around for a number of years, but no doubt they can always be refined and made more effective. And then the systems that underpin those cameras, the IT, the tech, the link to charging and payment and enforcement, and then operators and outsourcers who might operate these schemes. There are opportunities to bid for operation opportunities on the schemes I've just run through, and there will be more as more of these zones come through in the UK and beyond. And then there's the wider opportunities. Clearly, these zones are intended to encourage a change in vehicle use, vehicle type, and that's going to be part of the push towards electric vehicles, and maybe in due course hydrogen vehicles. So that's an opportunity for the manufacturers. It's an opportunity for EV charging systems and charging operators. Vehicle retrofit. What I understand that the retrofit market is woefully underplayed at the moment. There are huge opportunities to develop retrofit opportunities, retrofit engines and solutions for vans and trucks and other specialist vehicles. Hydrogen, of course, might this be the fuel of the future? Might in 10 years, maybe we won't be driving electric cars, but actually hydrogen fueled cars. And then last mile delivery. The makeup to the fleet at the moment is a lot of vans, white vans driving around city centres. But actually, should we be driving vans, or should we be driving electric scooters or other sort of small vehicles that might actually deliver those goods to where they're needed quickly, but in a slightly different way? And then it's not just the UK. Colleagues of ours are telling us that clean air zones are being considered across Europe and other developed countries. I think it's just a really interesting development. So that's what I had to say on clean air zones. Henry.
Thanks, Nick. That's great. I'm going to bring in Melissa, and then we'll come back to hydrogen if we get a chance.
Yeah,
we may not do, unfortunately, but we'll persevere. But we have a hard stop at 2 o'clock, sadly, so we can't go on any longer, I'm afraid. So, Melissa, great to have you with us.
Hi, good afternoon.
Back in Lancashire, where we've been so often today. Melissa, do you want to quickly come in on the things you were going to say, and then we'll go straight into discussion?
Sure.
Thanks,
so I'm going to just rattle through what was a 20-minute presentation.
So sorry.
I'm going to try to do it in 5 minutes. So yeah, I'm Melissa Conlon, and I'm the Commercial Director of the MRC Northwest. We were established in 2001 as a collaboration between Boeing and the University of Sheffield. We are part of the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. What we actually do is we help manufacturers of any size to become more productive, more competitive, and we actually help them to introduce advanced techniques, technologies and processes. There's about 600 of us across 6 centres, and I actually run the Preston Centre here at Samlesbury Enterprise Zone. So these are a few of our partners, so I won't dwell on this. You can see we work with a lot of industrial partners. we don't want to duplicate everything that's done in Sheffield, so we have key research themes in the Northwest. So these are the key research themes we can actually help manufacturers with. So we're looking at battery pack assembly and electrification. So we're looking at how do you actually assemble the packs? How do you join them? So we've got particular specialist equipment in terms of joining techniques. We're looking at additive manufacturing, so not just the polymer-based stuff, but also the large metallic structures. So we're looking at titanium printing for things like aerospace-sized structures, robotics and automation, machining, and all the aspects of digitalization of manufacturing processes, you know, what some people refer to as Industry 4.0. And we're also starting to look now at net zero manufacturing and smart building technologies. So with our building that's going up on the enterprise zone, so Stephen at the beginning showed the enterprise zone in Preston. So this is our new building, which is currently going up. We will be in this building in September. So not only is this going to be the AMRC research centre, it's also going to be subject to contract, a low carbon smart factory building demonstrator. And what we're looking to do in the building is demonstrate how the use of connected assets throughout the facility will provide information in real time and also on historical energy use. So what we're doing is enabling industrial enterprises to streamline energy resources, you know, from the bottom line perspective, in both the production and the office spaces. And also we're looking to improve staff health and well-being in the building by utilising technologies. So what we're looking to do, the objectives of the building, are to demonstrate a range of retrofittable smart building technologies. And it's retrofittable that's the important word here, because what we want to do is encourage them to actually fit technologies within their legacy buildings. So we're providing access for manufacturers to actually come into our centre and evaluate the technologies and consider them for adoption within their legacy spaces in order to reduce the cost of ownership. We want to demonstrate how smart buildings can interact with people, systems and external elements. So our building will be connected to the weather and will reset itself depending upon what the weather's going to be doing. And also to promote well-being within the workforce and increase productivity. And the demonstrator is going to be a testing ground for local innovation. So, you know, we've alluded to the fact that here in Lancashire, there's a lot of low carbon inventors on the ground here. So what we want to do is actually help those inventors develop those technologies and support them in their innovation as per the model that Miranda showed you earlier. We want to demonstrate also low carbon methods of manufacture, so things like additive manufacturing, for example, and support companies to actually adopt those new technologies within their own setting. And as Miranda said, we're very much going to be collaborating with Red Cat. So what's important about this is it's about showing companies what the art of the possible is in terms of a smart building and actually how to reduce their cost of ownership within their own manufacturing processes in terms of energy. So just sort of a list of potential technologies that we're looking at for this building. So the whole emphasis of the building is almost that connectivity from what I would call kind of shop floor to top floor. So it's not just about kind of the office environment, it's also about what's happening on the shop floor and what does the building do to need to react to what's happening on the shop floor to make the best use of energy and energy recirculation, etc. So we're looking at installing these types of technologies within the building. And the key thing here is the analytics and how that's all joined together and what we can actually see. So we envisage dashboards all over the building and we're switching in and switching off technologies. So just very quickly, I think I've probably gone over this, but these are sort of how the project will be delivered. So it's very much about manufacturers coming into the building, seeing the technologies and obviously looking to adopt them. We'll then start connecting them with people like Miranda's project and also with funders. Okay, that's a quick canter through what we're doing.
Thanks so much, Melissa. And I realise I've asked you to present something that was going to be a half-an-hour discussion in literally a few minutes. People will have seen from the questions, there's been some great things asked. We were going to bring in Christopher Moore to talk about ESCOs, which I think sadly we're probably not going to have time to do as much of as I would have liked to. So I want to go straight back to some of the panel. And I think that one of the kind of questions, one from Jed Holdstock that really particularly struck me as one to come to the panel one, was around the potential role for free ports and how they could support trade between India and the Northern Powerhouse. Clearly that's an area where there's lots of opportunities, and obviously particularly refers to CCS and to hydrogen. So this was my way of getting back to hydrogen, Nick, having lost the dedicated time that I think we'd have all liked to have for a hydrogen discussion. So in terms of free ports and particularly around them accelerating CCS, to what extent do you see the hydrogen deployment being accelerated by having access to CCS facilities, or is it, do you think, a completely separate dimension? I think there's definitely some crossover, but do you also think there's enough happening in the hydrogen space in the UK at the moment, and is that particularly in the north? And if so, what can do to accelerate it and to mirror some of the real energy that clearly exists in India around that agenda? Yeah,
great question. I think there are significant opportunities. I might say something, and maybe Ian Wood might be able to say something as well. There are two very significant hydrogen clusters under development in the north. One, the HyNet project, which is sited in Stanlow in Chester, and also the projects are making use of the Humber, the Gigastack project, and both of those are very significant interfaces with the local ports. And certainly as well, the Gigastack scheme envisages using electricity from one of the offshore wind farms as well. So I think the whole combination of free port, access to port, hydrogen production on a very significant scale, it all looks great. Ian.
Yeah, I think the interconnectivity of the ports, offshore wind, and the hydrogen areas are going to be connected inevitably. There is a great series of projects up in the northwest Highlands and Islands of Scotland where you can see that happening already on a micro scale, and which we could see being replicated around these free ports and around the offshore wind farms, where excess power is being used with electrolysis to basically split water into its constituent parts and create hydrogen on relatively small scales at the moment up in the northwest Highlands and Islands, but you could see that being replicated on a much more industrial scale around the Humber and around the Mersey estuaries. So yeah, we certainly see opportunity. We just need the technology now to upscale the volumes to put it onto an industrial footing, and we see the incentives around free ports and the like to be a great incentive to allow that to happen, Henry.
Brilliant. And I know we've got a number of other really great questions that have come through. So we had one which was kind of very early in the discussion, actually, that we had, which was from someone who wanted specifically to kind of talk about sort of which area of renewables they thought kind of would be particularly valuable by 2030. That makes sense. So not just in terms of longer term technology, but things that were practical and scalable now. Would any of our panelists want to come in on that? And I think we'll maybe try and finish with coming back to you, Jed, because you've had a whole load of questions about microgeneration in your presentation. So I'm going to maybe ask Jed to just come in on all the things he's been asked and see if he's got any reflections from the conversation. But did anyone want to come in with an answer on the kind of 2030 question?
So I think obviously renewables, wind and solar are really just mainstream, and it's all about deploy. I think the really interesting, two interesting areas. One is grid scale storage other than batteries. So that's everything from compressed air energy storage in salt caverns, which is relevant to the northwest, to compressed air, to liquid air engines, hydropower being another good example. And then the other one, I think, is the integration of power and heat, because we're kind of on the route to decarbonising power, but heat is a real problem. And so this sort of power to heat and vice versa question is a really interesting area that we need to do a lot more innovation and deployment.
Brilliant. And before I just finish off by going to Jed, could you answer all the microgeneration questions, because you started quite a debate and about your proposal and positive response, I think, to what you were doing and some ideas. Do you want to have the last word, and then we'll very quickly hand back and finish off this session?
Wow. Well, thanks very much for all the comments from everyone, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to respond. I need about an hour to do that now, to respond to all of those, so that's great. I think picking up some of the key elements within it, I think one of the key questions that's said there is, how do we get energy organisations to change the way they do things. I think it is about what we're very much trying to look at is using the manufacturing technology background that we have to make sure that we make the renewable energy a cost-effective alternative. So that instead of somebody using renewables because they want to be green, we're not blind. We realise that the only reason people would use renewables is if it's cheaper than using the thing that's in the socket on the wall. And it's that sort of change that we focus on, making it simpler to do the right thing than default back to an old behaviour. And that's really what we focus on. And I think, you know, part of it, and again, I had some feedback today from the Environment Agency here in the UK where they're engaging with schools and the like. And it's very much that, you know, we've got a generation coming through, you know, it's picked up in one of the other presentations as well, you know, with the Greta Thunberg reference, is that there's a generation coming through that are far better informed than any previous generation in terms of how to behave in a way that's sustainable. And it's really giving them the ability to engage with power generation and giving them a route to being able to be active within this. And that's why I think that, you know, a number of the things that have been said, you know, with both what Melissa said of the, you know, the sandpit that's being developed there at AMRC, with what we're doing with Red Cat. I think that's a great opportunity. I think that, you know, I really want to don't want to get dragged up onto the low emission zone because I thought that was really interesting. There's loads that comes out of that.
And there's no time for that. So and I think, to be fair, all the people who have been discussing it have clearly been having a dialogue themselves, right? So I feel like those issues have been aired. I think that we've certainly picked an issue that's achieved in terms of Nick getting a debate started, because whatever I think if people may remember, of course, there was in Manchester another idea of vehicle charging based on usage, and that's coming round again. So I think I'm very unpopular for being a fan of road user charging in some form in the UK, which obviously then removes the need for low emission zones because it does the job, and you can then also have some fiscal conversations. I'm sure I get almost no support for that opinion though. So I'm lucky in being in a minority on that one. So it's been a great session. We are at a hard stop of 2:00. So I'm going to pass on to Faria and colleagues just in case there's any last housekeeping that I have missed, and to Sharon. But otherwise, all it is from me is a big thank you to all of the panelists and to all of the audience, and a real thank you to all those who've been involved to make this whole week possible, not just today, because it's been an incredible event and something that's so hard to do in the current climate. But the fact that the team involved have still put this on, and thanks particularly, Sharon, for all you've done and for involving us at MPP. It's a privilege to be with you today.
Well, actually, Henry, you haven't missed anything at all. You've done an outstanding job. I mean, Rachel and her team in Lancashire at Invest in Lancashire and Lancashire County Council have done an incredible job because they were our lead partners for this particular session. And I think what's really clear is that we could have gone on and on and on, and you know, it's a conversation that we need to keep going. I have the really great job of thanking everybody, but before I do that, I do want to say that none of the conversations are going to be lost. Every single masterclass, including this one, has been recorded. We have requested for slides so that we are going to share them with all the participants, and we want to keep those conversations going. We want people to make loads of contacts, and we want lots of commercial activity. So I will now go on to thank everybody. I want to thank Invest in Lancashire and Lancashire County Council for all they've done, their support. Henri, to you and your team at the Northern Powerhouse Partnership, the CII, the Confederation of Indian Industry, and Squire, Patton, Boggs, obviously our patrons. Stephen Young, a big thank you to you at Lancashire Council. Ian at Squires, thank you so much. Sukanya, Bhadra at CII, thank you to you. Prasenjit, thank you so much at UKIBC. Jed, thanks to you. Manpreet Singh in India. I know it's late over there. Thank you so much for staying involved in the whole session. Miranda, thank you so much. Dr. Stephen Fawkes, thank you so much, and congratulations, and keep that going. And I hope you're back again to share with us that journey. Perhaps when we're in India, running the same session in India, that's what we're planning to do. Nick from Squires, and Melissa from AMRC, and of course Faria too as well. Thank you, good afternoon, and namaskar. Thank you so much.